Hey everyone, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are based in the world. My name is Naira Hussain and I'm a developer advocate at IBM. I'm here with my colleague Khalil and we're going to be speaking to you about serverless applications in Node.js and Python using Cloud Functions. Khalil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yes, thank you, Nihara. So, hey everyone, my name is Khalid Faraj. I'm a developer advocate based in UAE, mainly focused on data and AI services. But today, just like Nihara said, we'll be focusing more on serverless, and we want to introduce you to the Cloud Functions platform and how we can really get the most benefit out of it. So, Nihara, back to you.
Right. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. For those of you that are new to Crowdcast, you will see you can drop a comment in the chat. At the bottom right under the live stream, you will see you can ask a question in the Ask a Question panel. There are some polls for you from Khalil and I just to get to know you as an audience. So please take a second to answer those. To get started, you will see a green workshop resources button that has everything you need to know for this workshop, including the slides, the code, everything is in one GitHub repository. So if you're lost at any point or you want to follow along at your own pace, remember to click on the workshop resources button, right? So we summarized all that for you over here. This is the link to get started. At any point in the workshop, feel free to drop your feedback for us in the survey. So you can scan this QR code or go to this link, ibm.biz/serverless survey. Khalil will put the links for you in the chat. So you can provide us your valuable feedback, and that will really help us improve the experience for you next time. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be speaking a bit about the challenges that developers face, right? What is serverless computing? What is IBM Cloud Functions? We're going to get started with a hands-on code lab. So that's where we'll be developing a simple Hello World application in Node.js and getting started with a Python script to show you how to connect to a database and a serverless function. We'll speak about the limitations, an introduction to code engine, and then our useful links and resources. So I just wanted to tell you a bit about how we came up with this workshop. We can see from our community in Middle East and Africa, you'll have a lot of questions about serverless. So to give you an example, I'm seeing the sort of questions like, what are serverless functions? What does serverless mean? What's serverless computing? Are serverless functions microservices? How does it work? Why serverless architecture? Why serverless is the future? When serverless is a bad idea? And will serverless kill containers? So it seems like there's a lot of questions from our community around serverless. You can take a look at where we got this data here from a site called Answer the Public. So I'm going to try and address these questions during our talk today. Of course, feel free to ask any other questions you might have in the Ask a Question panel, and you can even vote on other people's questions there. Right, so let's talk a bit about the challenges you have as a developer. So for any developer, especially if you're fresh out of a coding bootcamp or fresh out of university, you're equipped with a certain skill set. And for you, all you want to do is make sure that you have your application available somewhere and people are able to access it. You just want to be able to code and make sure that your application is deployed, it's highly available, and people can access it without any issues. So you want to deploy your code somewhere. You don't want to worry about things like scaling, performance. Is it highly available in multiple regions? Do you have to pay too much if no one is accessing your application? How do you handle high availability? How do you handle security, monitoring, logging about your application? So I was in a similar boat when I graduated fresh out of university. I just wanted to be able to code, right? So let me give you a few examples. Take the example of a mobile video game, right? The popularity of a game is hard to predict. You might have a lot of people accessing the application at the start, and then the popularity may decline. So you want to make sure you're paying only for those users which are accessing your application, right? So it's a bit of predictable shape, but it's unpredictable in terms of volume. You don't know if it's going to be a popular game and you have a couple hundred users or a couple thousand users or tens of thousands of users, right? So you want to be able to handle all that volume. Another example is perhaps a conference mobile application. So it definitely has massive variations in demand. So if you think about a conference that is running over a week, and let's say we have a couple 10,000 or 100,000 people accessing this mobile application. So definitely during the day, we need to have high availability since we have a high number of users. And during the evening, perhaps this would decline, right? And similarly, you'll see this pattern continuing for the rest of the week. So we can see that for some applications, it's hard to predict how accessible your application needs to be. So a good way of approaching this is with serverless computing, right? So let's address some of those questions you had earlier about serverless computing. It definitely does not mean no servers. Everything is running on servers. But what this means is we've abstracted away the complexity behind it, the infrastructure complexity. So you don't have to worry about that. As a developer, you just need to worry about your business logic and your functional code, right? So you just have to make sure you're following some good, secure coding practices, and your code is available and ready to run on a cloud platform. Right? It is definitely highly auto-scalable. So the servers in the background are managed by the cloud provider, and it's highly scalable in the sense that if you have a couple hundred users or a couple 100,000 users, it's able to scale to that demand. It is highly available, right? So for any users anywhere in the world, you will be able to work with them with your serverless application. You definitely have faster time to market, since as a developer, you don't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure. You just need to worry about your code. Has it been tested? Is it good to deploy, right? Pricing is calculated on a pay-as-you-go basis. So in serverless computing, you can read up about this. Companies have saved massive amounts in costs just by switching to a more serverless architecture, right? So in traditional forms of cloud computing, whether that's infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, you might be paying by the month or by the hour. So you won't really be accounting for the times when users are not accessing your application. You still have to pay for that regardless. But in serverless computing, you're literally paying for the milliseconds that a user is accessing your application, right? So an instance of your application is spun up and spun down for that user. So that's what's happening over here. And that's why pricing is very efficient. The last benefit over here is polyglot environments. So it doesn't matter what coding language you're familiar with, you can go ahead and deploy your application in a serverless computing environment. So you can understand that it handles the operations for you, and it takes off the headache of scaling, handling low latency, high availability, having your application in multiple regions, monitoring, security, and logging. So for you as a developer, you just need to worry about, does your code pass all these checks, the tests, is it secure to go ahead and deploy, right? So that's the ideal scenario. Here are some of the use cases that you can use serverless architectures for. So these are just a few examples, but Khalil will take you through these in detail and the tutorials and resources for them when we get to the code lab, right? So we have batch jobs, mobile backends for your multiple applications on different devices, chatbots. You can use it for IoT sensors to process all the information before it gets stored in a database or it gets routed to another application. Multimedia processing. So an example is if you want to resize videos or images to make it highly optimized for your websites, you can do that in a serverless application. Database changes. If you want to do any ETL or you want to make any changes to your data before sending it elsewhere, you can do that with serverless as well. So this brings us to what we're going to show you today, IBM Cloud Functions, right? So this is the offering for serverless on IBM Cloud. It's a function as a service programming platform. You can definitely accelerate your development. In terms of a developer, you're literally spending the time on your code. Once you have your code available online, that's it. Your code is deployed and ready to go. It's very easy to reuse your code and simplify migration. So say you have this code running locally or in any other environment, it's very easy to just reuse that same code using Cloud Functions. You can leverage the benefits of Watson services or any other services on IBM Cloud. So some of you might know that these are the data and AI services. So it's much easier to integrate it with IBM Cloud Functions. The next thing is about the price. So the first 5 million executions of your functions per month are free. So that is pretty cool in my book. And the second thing is after these 5 million executions, if you exhaust that, there is a cost of $0.000017 per second per GB of execution, right? Which applies after. And you can see about the supported languages. So the most popular used languages for us are Node.js, Python, we have Ruby, PHP, Swift, and you can use any language of your choice within a Docker container. So here's just an example of who is using IBM Cloud Functions. So IBM had this client, SiteSpirit, which helped their clients create picture-perfect marketing material with their own serverless media as a library service. So their clients were basically like real estate companies or travel companies, which were looking for high-quality media, so images and videos that they could use in their campaigns for demand generation, so marketing campaigns. But previously, it was a bit hard to get it in the right place, and it cost them a lot to make sure that these were optimized for those sites. So they were able to use IBM Cloud Functions to redo their whole online experience for their clients. So they were able to replace disorganized image folders with a clean, user-friendly online experience. They had a 10x or 10 times faster image search capabilities and a 90% cost reduction by moving to a serverless architecture. So I think that's very impressive. And you can read more about different companies that have reduced their costs while moving to serverless. So for today, in our hands-on workshop, we're going to introduce you to Cloud Functions, how it works, build a really simple Hello World application using Node.js. So if anyone here is a JavaScript developer, this will be really easy to follow along. The next step is, how do you work with parameters? How do you pass data to your serverless function? We'll also be looking at a serverless Python function and how to connect that to a database. We're using a NoSQL document database over here called CloudDB. And the last step is to configure a trigger, so an event trigger, and connect it to this Python function. So at this point, we're going to give you a few minutes so you can log into your existing IBM Cloud account if you already have one. Remember to go to this link, ibm.biz/serverless-intro. So this is a referral link for Khalil and I through the workshop. So it shows that we have worked with you through this workshop to help you get through this code lab. And we also have the follow along GitHub repository for the code lab. You can go to ibm.biz/serverless lab, or you can click on the green workshop resources button at the bottom of this live stream. Right. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Khalil so he can take you through the code lab. Khalil?
Yes, thank you, Niara. Hi, everyone, again. Let me just share my screen and my video. Okay. All right, so I hope everyone is creating his IBM Cloud account. So we've already shared the links. Basically, if you already have an account, you don't need to create a new one. So if you're an existing user, you can simply just log in with the same one that you already have. If you are a new user, just make sure to follow along the steps on the GitHub repository. So we've already sent the GitHub on the chat, and basically this will be the tutorial that we'll be doing for this specific workshop. And of course, if you can just scroll down a bit, you will see this sign up login to IBM Cloud. There are three easy steps to be able to create your IBM Cloud account. So just add your account information, your email and password, and then they will ask you to verify your email. So you receive an email to verify it, and then just a couple of information, some personal information that you will need to fill. So I know this might take a couple of minutes, so just let us know once you're done by sending the number 1. So if everyone has already signed in, just please send 1 on the chat so we can know to go ahead so we can proceed with the next steps. And if anyone is having any issues like a country error or something like that, just make sure to choose any other country, and then they will ask you to choose another country so you can just add the country that you're currently in. So just change the country for the first time, and then you can put again the country that you're currently in. But hopefully no one will face this issue, but just in case. So meanwhile, I will be going to the chat to see if, all right, so yeah, just send number 1 if you are already signed in. Okay, we are starting to seeing some ones. We need more, please. Okay. Right, I'll just wait a couple of seconds, then we'll proceed. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 5. If anyone needs more time, just let me know at this moment. If not, then I'll just proceed. Okay, I think we can proceed. All right, so now that you have signed into IBM Cloud, basically this is how it looks. Now, before talking about the IBM Cloud Dashboard, I just want to mention quickly what we'll be doing. Now, Mira already did a nice summary about that. But basically, I just want to let you know that this session will focus more on the very basics of the Cloud Functions platform. So we won't be doing anything fancy. It's more of a hello world, just to give you an introduction on what is the Cloud Function platform, how it works, how we can work with parameters. Especially with the Node.js app, we won't be doing basically anything interesting. It's just to get a bit of familiarity about the platform. As for the Python app, now this might be, you might see this a bit more interesting because we'll be integrating CloudMDB, which is a NoSQL database, into our Cloud Function, and we're going to send some data to this specific database using a trigger. So here the work, we'll do a bit of more work, but for the first phase, it will be basically just a very basic hello world. So now, as you can see, this is the Ibm Dashboard. And the first thing is to do here, just to click on this icon that has the letter F. So this basically represents the Cloud Function platform. So we'll just click on this because basically we'll do our majority of our work here. And this is the main dash page of Ibm Cloud Function. You'll see an introduction about it, what's new, some updates, some of the benefits. But some very interesting thing in here is that we are actually showing some of the use cases and samples, and these are kind of a very useful use cases. So for people who want to do some more advanced stuff, you can go ahead and check out these different use cases. Each use case has its own tutorial. So for example, in this one, we have serverless backends. So how we can build a serverless backend with Cloud Functions. This one, for example, it's for mobile backend. So if you have a mobile app and you want to use some push notification to your mobile app, you can use this, do an integration with that through the Cloud Function. We have cognitive data processing. If you want to detect some object using IBM Watson as well, this can be done through the Cloud Functions. Data processing, IoT ready, if you're into Internet of Things. We have event stream processing, much more as well, like conversation scenario and scheduled tasks. So basically, if you're interested in any of these, you can simply just click on the go to tutorial. And this will redirect us to the specific documentation that has the tutorial of this use case. And basically, we'll see everything there. Like they will guide you step by step on how to do this case. So just waiting for the page to load to give you a bit of an overview. Okay, so just like in here, we can see that, for example, this one takes around 2 hours to do it. We have all the steps in here. I think this one is working with a guestbook database. So the objective is how we can deploy a serverless backend, how we can expose a REST API through the Cloud Function, start making HTTP requests. So basically, these are all the steps. The first one is by creating the guestbook database. We will see all the different sub-steps to be able to do this one. Everything is there. Then we have the step 2 to create serverless actions. And everything is noted, everything is documented. So just feel free to check it out and check other use cases to enhance your skills up if you want to make something more advanced. Now back to our workshop, which again is an introductory to Cloud Functions. We are going to start with creating an action. So we'll be working mainly with actions and triggers, and the first one is the focus on actions. So you will see here on the left side there is this action, or as well you can simply just go ahead with the start creating. If you click on start creating, this blue button, it will open up all the services that we can create in this moment, and of course the first service that you want to create is an action. So we'll see here under single entities action. Basically, actions are the Cloud Function itself, so they will contain some code, and these line of codes will help us to perform direct work, just like REST APIs. For example, if you want to build a serverless backend, you will need to have your REST APIs, so these can be handled there in the Cloud Function. They can be triggered, expose them as endpoints. For example, if you want to read from a specific database or something like that. So let's go ahead and click on action. We will give our action name. So we'll name this one Hello World, just add Node.js. So this is the action name. We can leave this as it is, the default enclosing package. And then we have our runtime. So here, basically, we can choose the runtime. As Niara was explaining before, we support many languages. It's a polyglot environment. So for now, we'll just leave it as Node.js. And then we are going to click on create. Now, before proceeding, at this time, I need you to send number 2, just to make sure that you have reached this step. So please, on the chat, just let me know that you are here, that you have created an action by sending the number 2. We'll go back to the chat. Okay, I see a couple of 2s. We'll be waiting for more. I only see at this moment 2 2s. So if anyone is facing any issue or something, just let us know in the chat. I can go back. If not, just send number 2. And meanwhile, just at the moment, we didn't do anything. So we just basically went to the Cloud Function platform. I just clicked on actions, give my action a name, and that showed the Node.js environment. So that's it basically. And then I clicked on create. So I hope everyone is following along, because I am not seeing more 2s. So if anyone is facing any issue, just let us know. If not, then I think I will be proceeding. Okay, I think I'll just go ahead and proceed. So let's go back. So yes, so this is our action. This is kind of our Cloud Function here. This is a Node.js. There's nothing fancy. And we just have the message hello world. This is our main function. So this is exactly what we'll be running when we want to trigger or run this specific code. So basically, to run it, if you want to test your Cloud Function, you can just click on this blue button, Invoke. So if you click on here, you will see that there is this activation kind of panel opens up, and it will show us the output. So in this case, we have the output JSON response basically that says message hello world. And usually these are in a form of a JSON response, because mainly with Cloud Function, we use this as JSON response since we are sending data from a place to another place. So it's better to keep this format as it is, because we eventually are working with JSON. But this is just a very basic example on how exactly it works. And just like you write any other code, we can do the same thing. So for example, this is something, just if you want to write a function here, let's say a function that says hello world, we can just say and return the string hello world. And then in here we can define a variable that is equal to our function that we just created. And in this case, we will just return the string in here. So just like if we have any programmers, just like you usually write the code, this will run exactly the same thing. So anytime you make any change, just make sure to click on save. And now if we put here, and now if we run the code, the same thing will happen. So we are running this function. As we can see, we have again the output hello world, because now what we are doing is we are running this function in here. And again, only this part will run in the Cloud Functions. This is the main one, only the main one. We cannot change this one. But we can add as much as we want other functions. That's what we do with a regular program. And of course, we can log some stuff, just like we usually do if you want to debug. So if I add, for example, console.log here, and I click save, and I invoke. So at this stage, I will be able to see the result, of course, but I will be able to see the log that is right here. So this shows me that I have passed in through this function, I've run this part. This is useful when you're debugging, if you're facing any issue on something, on a specific type code. If you want to double check that you're entering a specific function, we will be using the console.log function right here. So this is nothing really, just a kind of a 101 quick start on Cloud Functions. But now let's try to work a bit with more interesting stuff, parameters, because eventually with Cloud Functions, we will need to send data and work with data. So there are two ways to work with parameters in the Cloud Function. The first one is by clicking parameters in here on the left side. So this is basically useful for kind of static parameters or for credentials. Same one that you will be putting inside your .env file in your configuration when you're building your app. So here exactly it's the same thing. But for now, we'll just say, we'll just create two parameters. Let's say, for example, the first one is my name, the string, and here I'll add a place, for example, and I'll click save. So now I'll be going back to the code. So now I have some static parameters defined in here, and I can simply access them inside my code from here. So if I say, in this case, plus, to access them, I simply use this keyword param. So this holds all my parameters. So I can simply just type params.name. And then I'm going just to make the sentence a bit more meaningful. Hello, say this is a, I'll be adding the name. And then here I'll say from, I'll add the second parameter, which is the place. So we can just add params.place. Okay, so again, just again, what I'm doing here, I have my parameters defined, which is my name and my place defined in here. And basically what I'm doing, I'm accessing these parameters using the params keyword. That this is the default way to access them with Node.js. And I'm just concatenating the string. So I'm just adding this is my name from my current place. So this is Khalil from Dubai. This is what we will see. So we click on save. And now if we invoke, so now we see hello world, this is Khalil from Dubai. I need to add a space in here. Okay, so now if I just run again, this should be much better. All right. So this is the first way of how we can add parameters. But of course, again, this is only useful for credentials and secret variables. Let's say we want to work with dynamic data, but we want to test it in here. So I don't know, let's say maybe you are building an application where you have a user who needs to submit some information, like let's say booking, he need to add his phone number or his name, anything he wants, his email, right? So these stuff, they will need to be passed from the app to here. And if you want to test it just from this side, from the backend side, instead of having everything ready for the front end, we can use the invoke with parameter button right here. So this one basically takes a JSON format. So we'll add some parameters as a JSON format. So I will leave the same parameters that I were using before. Now, before doing this, let's go back to parameters. And let's delete these because we will not be using anymore. We want to access the parameters now from the other one. So just delete these two and click on save. And let's go back to code. Okay, and now we'll just click on invoke with parameters. I'll be adding my two parameters, which are name and place, in the JSON format in here. So name, Khalil. And here, make sure to add a comma because this is a JSON. We want to add different parameters. We need to separate them with a comma. And then I'll add my second parameter, which is the place. And I'll say Dubai. So now I'm going to click on apply. And again, we hit invoke. So now we can see that I will be getting the same response, but this time I'm accessing my parameters from here because I've defined them in here. So this is useful again for testing purposes. If I don't want to send my information right now from my front end, from the client side, I just want to build on this REST API, and I want to see how it looks. I can add my values right here, my parameters right here, and invoke them to see how they will look like. So this is basically an introduction on how we can work with parameters. Now let's move to the more interesting part, is how we can expose this Cloud Function over the web, because eventually when we're working with Cloud Function, we'll have REST APIs, we need to expose these to have an endpoint that we can access. So to do this, basically, let's go to the endpoints right here. This is pretty simple. So all you have to do is just to click on this, enable as web action, and now we will see that we have a URL right here. So we didn't do anything, we just click on this, and now we will click save. And this is really the cool part because, as I was speaking before, a lot of developers, when they want to deploy something, they will go to the infrastructure side and see how they will want to deploy this on a specific running server. And there is a lot of work to be doing. Instead, all they want is just to write the code. So in this case, we didn't do anything. We just clicked on a couple of stuff, and now we already have a URL that we can use So we will access it in a bit, but just enable it as a now. And let's go back to the code. So let's say in this case, you want to go ahead and access the endpoint. Now, of course, we'll not be building a REST API. Instead, let's just add some HTML and CSS to show us something there that, once we click on this link, we actually see something. So in this case, what I want you to do is to go to the GitHub repository that I've shared earlier. If you scroll here, under tutorial, there is a specific HTML code that we are going to copy. So basically, this is everything that we were doing here, like the messages, hello, how we were working with parameters. You can look at this if you want later on your own. But for now, yes, exactly. So now we are on the create a web action part. Basically, what we want to do is to copy this. So we'll copy this part. And now we're going to go back to our Cloud Function, which is here. And under main, so this is basically, it will be useless, but we can leave it, and we're not using it anyways. Under main, we're going to remove these two lines and paste this part. So basically, this is just an HTML. We're putting it right here to display some content on the endpoint once we access it. So we can go ahead, click on save. Okay, and now what we can do is go back to our endpoints. And this is our web action, this is our URL. So we can click on it and it will open up on a new page. And now we can see that we have something that's visible, hello, undefined from undefined. Now, of course, it's going to show undefined because the parameters that we were adding them from the Invoke with parameters. So these work only for testing purposes, kind of if you want locally on the Cloud Function itself from the platform. Now, in this case, if you want to show some parameters in here, just like you do with the REST API, the route, we can add some parameter. We will do the exact same thing. So we're going to append the parameter values right here. Now, again, if we go back to our GitHub repository and just scroll down a bit, see, now we are here. You will see under this, there is, the query parameters to the URL string, right? This one. So for those who don't know, basically when we want to add parameters to our URL, we start by adding the interrogation, and then we add our parameters, and we can separate them with the end. So we can simply just take this, copy it, and go back to your Cloud Function, which is here in this case. Append this to the URL. So just paste it right here, and you can change the parameters if you want, or you can just leave it as it is. So for now, if I just enter, I will have hello Frodo from Shire. If I want to change my name, let's say I'm going to put my name, and I'm going to put my place. In this case, I will be having hello Khair from Dubai. So this is how we do it basically with URL routes. So this is kind of the first phase of this workshop. Again, nothing fancy, I know. This is just to make sure that you can have a bit of an understanding about Cloud Functions, how we can access and work with the platform, how we can pass some parameters. So before moving to the next phase, I want to know that you are everything is good so far. So just let me know by sending this time number 3. So I'll go to the chat and see if we are ready to go to the next step. So just send number 3 if everything is good. If anyone has some questions or anyone wants me to repeat something, just let me know. And I will be more than happy to repeat it for you. Okay, so we are receiving some 3s. Awesome. I'll just wait a couple of seconds. Again, if anyone has any issue, just let me know. If not, then I'll just proceed. Okay, I think I will be moving forward. All right. So now what we want to do is we are going to go back to our IBM Cloud Function platform. Just you see here on this IBM Cloud, just click on this if you want to open it on a new tab. We're going to open it in a new tab. And this will direct us back to our main IBM dashboard, where we have all our services and everything. And what you want to do right now is to create a cloud and service. So for those who don't know, Nira explained it before. I'm just going to repeat it. So Cloud and DB is a NoSQL database. If you ever work with Firebase or MongoDB, this is pretty similar. It's a NoSQL, so it uses the same concept of storing documents and rely on the concept of key value pair for every document. So we will click on the search button right here and just type cloud. You will see under catalog results, we have the cloud service right here. So this is the service that we'll be using. So just click on it. And it will ask you to choose an offering. So just go ahead with the cloud one. And you can choose any region that you want. I usually choose the one that I'm closest to. So I just go with London. And we can leave everything as it is. Here you can, of course, go with the light one. And here we have some capacity information for the light plan. So for every second, we can have 20 reads. So if we have information inside our database that you want to read, we can read 20 elements per second. If you want to write some data to this database per second, we can write 10. We can have 5 queries per second and 1 gigabyte storage included. So just leave everything as it is. Just make sure to have the light one here, choose the region, and go with cloud. Of course, if you want, you can give it a name if you want to change it, or you can leave it as it is, and click on Create. Now, once you click on Create, if you go back to the Ibm Dashboard, so you can go here by simply clicking on this Ibm Cloud button on the top, you will see that your service will be provisioning. So sometimes it may take a couple of seconds to do this. Sometimes it's instantly. It depends on your connectivity speed. So, but at the moment, to see it, you will scroll down under Resource Summary. And in here, just click on Services and Software. So in this case, because we are using the cloud and service, it will be stored or provisioned under Services and Software. So if you click here, you will see that you have your cloud and service created. So with the region and everything, and it's showing active. So in my case, this is my cloud and service. It's named Cloud and -dm. When I created, I chose the London region, and it has been provisioned. So you should be able to see your own cloud and service right here. And what I want you to do is to go ahead and just click on it. Now, when you click on it, we will see this right side panel that opens up. We can click on View Full Details. Right. So here, this will kind of send us to this cloud and service that we have. And what we want to do from here is basically to go to service credentials from the left side. You click on this. If you have nothing, just click on your credential. If you already have one, you can just expand this one. But I think you won't you will see nothing. So just make sure to click on your credential, and this will automatically generate for you something like that. So you can expand this, and you will see the API key, all of the information, and username. So basically here, this is important because we want to use our API key and the username to be able to integrate this cloud and service with our Cloud Function. So just make sure to note these down because you'll be using them later on. And that's it for now from the cloud part. We will be returning to the cloud at the very end. But for now, all I want you to do is to just click on service credentials, open this up, and just take the API key and username. Or if you want to leave this open, and once you want to integrate the cloud and Cloud Function, you just go back and copy and paste it. So before proceeding, I'll be going back to the chat. So now this time I want you to set number 4 if you have already instantiated your cloud and you have created your service credentials. So just let me know by sending number 4 so we can proceed to the next step. Okay, we see 1.4, that's good. Right, we have 2 4s. We'll just wait a couple of seconds. Is anyone facing any issue? Just please let me know. If not, then I think you guys are doing a great job so far, because yeah, we see a lot of 4s now. Okay, I think we are good to go. All right, so now we'll go back. Okay, so now what we want to do is to go back to our Cloud function. And basically, we want to start again from scratch. So we'll repeat the same step that we did with the Node.js one, but this time we'll be doing it with Python. So just go back to functions in here. You can click basically on functions. If by any chance you were not sure or you're lost, simply you can go to your IBM Cloud, and you will see this. Okay, let me open this up for you just to make it much easier. In case you were lost, just go to IBM Cloud. This will direct us to the homepage of IBM, and just click again on the F icon to be sent again to the main page of Cloud Functions, right? But if not, then you can simply just go again from here. Go ahead from here. And again, we're going to click on action. Now, the first time we did it using start creating, but you can go ahead from doing it directly from here. And just like before, it will ask us to create an action now. So we click on create. And now it will send us back to all our services. We click on action. So we're going to give our action name. This time I'm going to name it Cloud Python. Okay. And we will leave the implementing package as it is. As for the runtime, this time, since we are working with Python, just make sure to change it to Python 3.7 instead of Node.js. So we click on Python 3.7, and now we're going to click on create. Okay. So now we should receive this notification just like before that the action is created. And pretty similar, just like what we had with the Node.js, we're having the same thing. This time we're having hello world, but of course with the Python syntax. Now in this case, what we want to do here is we want to use this Cloud function and make a communication with our Cloud and DB database service. So what we want to do here is to go to our GitHub repository. So open this GitHub just like before. And now we want to scroll down. So basically here we are covering the steps that we just did by going to Cloud and creating the service, and then having the credentials. And now we want to create a Python action, which we already did. Okay, so now what I want you to do is to take this code, take everything just as it is. You can click on copy. And you can click on copy from here instead of doing all of this. Just click on this small icon here and go back to our Cloud functions and remove everything from here. So we're going to delete this and paste this code that we just copied from the GitHub repository. So I will go and explain the code in a bit. But for now, what I want you to do is just paste it. And the next step is go to parameters right here. And I want you to create 2 parameters. And these parameters, they must have the exact same name of how we are referencing them inside the code. So, okay, let me just go back to the code. So in the code, for example, I am referencing them as username and API key. So what I want you to do is just create 2 parameters. We're going to add parameter and click again. Okay, now we have 2 fields. And because they are named username and API, we'll rename them here exactly the same thing. So username and API key. And now what we want to do is to go back to our Cloud service that we have, because we have our credentials there. So I know I asked you to open this in a new tab, so I hope you still have this tab open. So just click on the tab. This is my Cloud and DB. This is my service credentials. Go here. And what I want to do is just to copy the API key. Copy this one. Go back to Cloud Functions and paste it in here next to API key, because it's our API key. And again, we will do the same thing with the username. So we'll go ahead, take the username, and then go back to Cloud Functions and paste it in here. So now you should have 2 parameters, your username with the value that we got from Cloud service, And the same thing for our API key. So once you have these two, just click on save. And I'll go back to the chat to see if you are following along. So this time I want you to set number 5. So please do send number 5 if you were able to copy our Python code from the GitHub repository to this new Cloud Function that's created. And as well, if you were able to get your credentials and to paste them in the parameters. So I know this might take some time for you, but I'll wait. Just let me know if you're facing any issues so I can repeat the steps again. If not, just send number 5. Right, great, Pedro. We have one number 5 for now. Let's wait for more. So are you guys okay? Because I'm not seeing 5s. Just let me know if you are doing fine. If you have any issue, again, just let me know so I don't proceed. If no one is facing any issue, I will just move forward. If you need some time, just let me know. It's fine. You can go to the chat and just type, give us a minute or something. Okay. Great job, Subramaniam. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but okay. I think you're doing okay because I didn't see anyone is facing issue. All right, that's great. Now we're starting to see 4 5s. Okay, so I'll just proceed. So again, let's go back to the Cloud Functions. So what we have so far is our parameters and our code. Now I'm going to explain that this stuff, the code, what exactly it does. So I'll open the code so we can just go back to the code in here. And all right, so here basically we are importing the Cloudant module so we can use it inside our Python code. So all of these, basically these two are basically for Cloudant, and this is here just for the Cloudant result to see kind of to keep track if everything's fine, successful, if your connection has been done successfully. And then we are importing the datetime. Basically, datetime is a kind of library in Python that helps us to get the current date or the current time. So this is what it does. So that's what we need. And then I'm defining a counter value. So this is something that we want to keep incrementing it, kind of as a static value, as a global static value that keeps adding. All right, so now let's go to the main function, which is in here. So in the main, because this is the most important one, this is the code, this is the part that we'll be running inside our Cloud Function. So we are instantiating the connection between our Python code, this Cloud Function with Cloudant, using our username and our API key that we pasted in the parameters. So we are accessing these using the dictionary keyword. So just like in Node.js, we used to access our static parameters, or basically any parameters, using the params keyword. Here we are using the dictionary. And we use this because these are kind of static, confidential values. So of course, these are not dynamic, so it makes sense to put them in this parameters rather than the invoke with the one that we tested with JSON. So that's why we're doing it like that. And we're creating a connection here. And then we're saying, we are kind of referencing to counter as global. This is kind of how we do it in Python, how we work with static values in Python. And every time we run this part, we want to increase this counter by 1. So now if every time I invoke it, the counter will keep adding. So it starts 0, 1, 2, 3, and keep going like that. Then we have basically here our function that's running at time. We are storing the value as a response, and just to show this in case to know if it has been successful or not. So the function at time, what it does is basically it gets the current time right now that we have, and we change the format of this time to our minutes and seconds, and then we are creating a database called, in this case called demo-db2. You can name it whatever you want. I'll just name it, for example, to DB5. Okay, what it does is, once it creates this database, it's going to add or write a data to our database, to our demo-db5 database that is inside Cloud. And this data will mainly have two values. Two values. We have the counter and the time. So counter is the thing that we are keep incrementing, and then we have the time, which is the current time right now that we have. So this is our data. And basically, to send this data to Cloud, we need to create a document using the database Cloud Database API. So to do this, basically, we use mydb.create_document. So mydb is again our client. So this is how we can. This is our variable that lets us to communicate with our Cloud database. And all I'm saying is I want to create a new document that has these values, so the data. And then here we'll check this. So once this document is already there, once it's uploaded to the database, we'll just print success. Else, if something has happened, like an error, we'll just say something happened, please try again. So you can click on save. And actually, let's try to run it this time. So we'll go ahead and click on Invoke. So this would take around 10 to 15 seconds. Hopefully anytime soon now it will. All right, so now we will see our response, which is success. So this means that what just happened right now is we have created a database called, in this case, mydb5, and we have added these two values there. So to double check on this, what I want you to do is, this is optional because eventually at the very end we'll go back to Cloud, but you can follow along with me. Just go back to the Cloud DB service. And this time we're going to jump to manage, not service credentials. So just go to manage. And you will see here there is this blue button called Launch Dashboard. So just click on this. And this will redirect us to the Cloud service itself. Because, just like any other database, basically you can create your documents and create your database directly using the interface. But in this time, we want to kind of make it much more similar to a real use case where we're communicating with the database. So that's why I've done this from the Cloud Function. So as we can see right now, this is something that you will be seeing as well. You will see that you have your database created. And in my case, I have two. This one was an old one that I was doing when I was testing this workshop. For this workshop, and now I have the new one, demo-db5, and I see number of docs 1 because I've just invoked it. So now we have 1. So if I go ahead and click on it, I will see my document right here. And basically, I will see the counter has been increased to 1. It was 0, so now it's 1. And I will see the time as well. Of course, the time might differ based on the time zone, so that's why it might not be the actual, like the local time that you have. So what I want you to do now is, let's go back. Okay, now let's go back to our Cloud function. Or actually, before proceeding, just to make sure that everyone has reached this step, I'm going to go back to the chat. So, all right, so just send number 6 to proceed to the next phase. So by this time, I hope you were able to, so we didn't do anything from the step 5 to 6. Basically, what we have done is just to click on the button Invoke, so we can send the information. So if you have already clicked on Invoke and you opened your Cloud service just like I did, just send number 6 so I can know that everything is working fine. If you have any issues, any problems, just let me know. Right. We see a 6, that's great. Okay, so I hope no one is facing any problems. Again, if everything is fine, just keep sending the number 6. If you have any problem, let me know. If not, then I think I'll just proceed because I don't think anyone is facing an issue. We'll just wait a couple of seconds because the next step is pretty important one. We will actually now be moving to the trigger part, and this is pretty interesting. We will see how we can add a trigger that will keep running this Cloud function that we have. So that's why I just want to make sure everyone is good and set to go, so we can focus on this part. Okay, I think I'll just proceed. All right, so now let's go back to our Cloud Function, which is in here. And yeah, as I was explaining earlier, right now, a couple of seconds, not earlier, we now want to add some triggers. So basically, we're going to click on connected triggers from the left side in here. So just click on this, and you will see that we don't have any connect triggers, obviously, because we didn't add one. So just click on add trigger. And basically now what we'll be seeing here is all the different trigger types that you can work with. So there are different trigger types. So the first one, for example, is with Cloud Object Storage. For those who don't know, Cloud Object Storage is basically a service where we can store our files and our document. Just like maybe if you ever work with S3 bucket in AWS, there's something similar with Cloud Object Storage. The other one, so basically what happens here is every time we add a document or we update a document, we can connect this event that happened with our Cloud Function to run it. Another one is with Cloudant. So in case you are working with Cloudant, and let's say every time you update a value, or you remove a value, you add, or you do any of the CRUD, create, update, delete operations there, you can notify your Cloud Function by these events to run it as well. You can have custom triggers. So this is basically whenever we are making a REST endpoint, kind of, or make a post or something like that, we can use this to as an event to notify our Cloud Function so it can run. Other than that, we have event streams, and this basically, if you are working with Kafka, with messaging, with Kafka queue, we can use this as event streams to notify as well the Cloud Function. Now, what we'll be working today is one of the more, since it's an introductory, it's a bit more easier. It's periodic. So we're going to trigger the specific Python Cloud Function that we just created on a specific period of time. So what I want you to do here is just to click on periodic and basically add a name to it. So name it whatever you want. We can just name it add time. Add time trigger. Or no, let's make it more meaningful. Update DB, since we're updating our Cloud DB with some new information on a specific time. This would basically be what we'll be doing. So then here you can set the timer settings. So there are two ways. There's either the pattern or the cron. Cron basically disinvolves its right expression. We'll go with the simpler one with its pattern. And we can have patterns. The first one is using weekdays. So maybe you want to trigger the specific Cloud Function, let's say every Friday, for example, or every Thursday and Friday. You can do this. So in this case, every Thursday and Friday at 4 a.m. GMT, the Cloud Function will run. So basically, maybe if you have, I don't know, a Cloud Function that reads information, data from a specific place, a specific platform. Let's say maybe you are building something where you want to keep fetching data from Twitter, but you want to do this on a weekly basis. So you can have the script, your Cloud Function script, that will be handling the reading part. And maybe you can say that every Saturday I want you to fetch these new information that we have from Twitter, for example. Other than weekdays, if you want, you can choose hours. And then of course, there's minutes. So in our case, we'll be working with minutes. So we're going to add every minute. And basically that's it. So what will happen now is here, we've added a periodic trigger that will run the Cloud Function that we have every single minute. So once you click on minute, just click on create and connect. So now what will happen is this trigger will be connected to our Cloud Function, Python Cloud Function. It's enabled, so we need it enabled to make it run. So now it's actually running. So I'm going to wait a minute because after a minute we will see that a new document. Remember that the first time I went there was only one document. So now if you're going to wait a minute, automatically this trigger is going to run my script, my Cloud Function script. And in this case, we'll have another document that will be written to our database. So if I wait 2 minutes, I will see 2 new documents. So let's go meanwhile while we're waiting to the chat, and just let me know if you are facing any issues at this step. If you want me to repeat something, just let me know. Since now we can, we have a minute to wait. If not, then so I'm seeing a question. Nero has already answered it, but for other people as well, I want to let you know that this session is recorded. So in case you missed something or you want to, see it back, this session will be recorded. So if you just enter the same exact link to access this workshop, you can watch the recording later on. So I don't think we have any questions. I think a minute passed by. So all right, so let's move on then. If we now go back to the Cloud interface, now obviously there is only still one document because we need to refresh the page. So just refresh. Okay, and actually 2 minutes passed by. So now we have 3 documents. So if you click on this one, for example, you will see that the counter increased and this one was triggered at the specific time. So this is our second document. Let me go back. I think this is the third one. Yep, and now we have the third document. And we can see there is a difference of a minute between these two. So every minute, this trigger is keep triggering the Cloud function, and it's communicating with our database to add information. So now we see counter 3 with our time. So let's go back again. I think maybe another minute passed by. Yes. So now you see the more we wait, the more documents we will be having because we're checking this every. So that's the. I can't find the fourth document. This is the fourth one. So now we see 2 again. So we had 0, 1, 2. There is a 1 minute gap between each one of them. So yes, that's it basically. Again, nothing fancy in here. I think this one is pretty useful because a lot of people want to see how we can integrate database with serverless, and this example with Python show exactly how we can do this. Now, obviously, the use case here was not that interesting since we're just writing data, but we just want to make sure that you get the idea and to see how we can work with that. But you can do anything with it. You can, make read. Instead of writing data, you can read data, you can update data. Any one of these CRUD operations can be easily done throughout the Cloud Functions. Basically, just like you're building a serverless backend. So that's it. Before proceeding and giving the floor all to Naira again, just want to double check if you guys have reached this step. So just let me know, set number 7, just so I can know that you have actually seen the documents being sent on the Cloud. All right, that's great. We see a 7. Great job, Anish. Anyone else? All right, that's nice. If anyone has faced some problem or facing any issue, please, that's totally fine. I mean, just let us know in the chat and we can repeat some of the steps. Okay, I think not. Then, all right, Nira, we can go back to you.
Sure. Just sharing my screen. Okay, I hope you're able to see the slides now.
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Nice. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Khalil, for the hands-on lab. I hope it was really interesting and useful. I was really glad to see people following along in the chat, so they learned how to deploy a simple Hello World application in Node.js and how to write a simple Python script to edit your Cloud database, right? So we did have a question up at the start about when is serverless a bad option or when is serverless not the right option to use. So for Cloud Functions, here are some limitations you should know as a developer, right? So the first one is the size of your code. So the script that you're writing should not exceed 48 MB. Yeah, there are some workarounds for this. You can maybe choose to put it in a Docker container and then run it as a Cloud Function. But if you're using the method that Khalil just showed you at the moment, your code should not exceed 48 MB. For the memory that your application requires to run, it should not exceed 2 GB. So it works with 256 MB up to 2 GB. And like we said before, it's automatically scalable, but it will not exceed 2 GB. The third thing to keep in mind is the timeout. So your application should return its result or should complete its computation within 10 minutes. So 10 minutes is the maximum timeout. So there are a few more a few more similar limitations you need to keep in mind. The full link is over here. So you can go to the IBM Cloud documentation for Cloud Functions and see the full list, right? But what if you want to work beyond these limitations? You want to remove the artificial limits. You want to benefit from container infrastructure. So we now have this new offering called Code Engine. So this is a serverless platform built on top of Kubernetes, which is the container orchestration engine. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the high scalability of a Kubernetes platform, plus you're getting the flexibility of a serverless platform, right? So this is really new. It's only been released a few months ago. In fact, we had a workshop last week called Code Engine, the new serverless way to deploy your containerized app. You will be able to find it on the IBM Developer YouTube account, or once you click on the slides, you can click on this link to access it. So moving on. In summary, here is everything we were able to do today, right? We built a simple hello world application, learned how to pass data to your functions by adding parameters in serverless apps. We built a simple serverless Python application to write data to a Cloud-in database, and learned how to add an event-based trigger to the Python app to run the function every minute. So I hope this was a really useful workshop for you. If you want to take it further and work even more with serverless applications, there is a useful guide over here. So you can get started here with this link, ibm.biz/serverless intro. We have the hands-on lab that we went through today, the GitHub repository in ibm.biz/serverless lab. You can explore the Cloud Function limits, which we just spoke about. You can go through the pricing as well. There's a very handy calculator over here, which helps to calculate based on the size of your code and based on the amount of time it requires to run, and how many executions you're planning to have per month, what would your pricing amount to. Remember to click the checkbox so you're using the free tier. So you have 5 million executions for free every month. IBM Developer is really useful if you want to see any code patterns, architectures, tutorials, videos, all sorts of code content about how to use serverless. And the last one is our meetup group. So if you just go to meetup.com/IBM-cloud-MEA, that's for Middle East and Africa, you can see all our upcoming events. You can also go and follow us on this Crowdcast account. So that's crowdcast.com/IBM developer, and you will be automatically notified of our upcoming workshops and webinars. Right? So these are some useful resources to help you out. Coming up next week is a new series called Your Path to Deep Learning. So this is really exciting, and it's a follow-on from a series last year called Your Path to AI. And we saw, based on the attendee feedback, lots of people want to get hands-on with deep learning. So we're having the series kicking off next week, with these 2 sessions taking place next week around sentiment analysis and identifying handwritten digits. And the following week, we'll have language processing and building a recommendation engine. Right? So if you're attending this series, keep an eye out. You can follow us on a meetup or a Crowdcast to get automatically informed, or you can visit these links and register for the individual sessions in the series. By completing the series, you will also get a badge and a certificate for your new skills. Right, so that's about it for today. Again, I've been Naira Hussain, and my colleague is Khalil Faraj. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on our emails. In our follow-up email, I will also include the links to our Twitter and our LinkedIn if you want to reach out over there. And lastly, please take a minute to complete this quick anonymous survey. So you can either scan the QR code or go to the link ibm.biz/serverless survey. Right? Let us know what you liked, what you think can be improved, and what you'd like to see next. So thank you all for joining today. Khalil, are there any questions in the chat or in Ask a Question that you want to address live?
No, at the moment there is no question. I'm just giving them a minute in case they want to ask anything.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just share again one more time the survey link. So please, guys, this is really useful for us if you can just fill the survey. Just has a couple of questions, random questions. So it won't take much of your time, and I'll share it as well in here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. I hope you found this session interesting. And if anything, you have our contact details, so feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.